Hi there, hope you are doing well. Welcome to this mini masterclass. Over the last 15 years, the world has seen dramatic changes. Many things that we take for granted these days did not even exist 15 years back. In fact, some people would refer to this as before Google and after Google, or before Facebook and after Facebook. The same phenomena is knocking at the doors of the operational excellence in many of the businesses. Today, we're not just talking about the boundaries of excellence, we are actually redefining them. We are promising a synergy between experience and operational mastery that creates unprecedented value for your business. That is why we created this mini masterclass and we're calling it Experience Operational Excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anirvan Sen. I'm the CEO of Fifth Chrome, as well as the creator of this mini masterclass. So let's get started. Experience Operational Excellence, in short, OpEx, Operational Excellence in Gen I age. So let's look at the agenda quickly. First, we're going to talk about operational excellence in organizations as it exists today. Then we're going to jump into understanding operational excellence. After that, we're going to talk about what do we need to change and then what to change to. We're then going to talk about reinvention of OpEx. And then we're going to talk about our methodology, where to start and how to do step-by-step change the way you need to redefine your operational excellence. And then last, we'll give you some options on what are the different ways that you may want to proceed. Okay, so let's look at operational excellence in organizations. The first thing is most of the operational excellence programs are struggling to stay relevant. And part of the reason is that they're still steeped in 20th century management thinking. The second thing is, while the world has moved to the experience economy, many of the operational excellence approaches, as well as the management systems of many businesses, are still dealing with process economy, where everything was based on process improvements. The third thing is, as many of you would have already started working with Gen AI or generative AI applications, majority of the world are still trying to figure out what that means for them. The fact that human machine interface can be an advantage is not necessarily visible to a lot of people. In fact, there's a fear amongst many of us that think the machines may take up our conventional jobs. We also see that companies are still stuck in their functional silos and they're not looking at the entire business as a business model. They think marketing is still marketing, sales is still sales. Digital marketing is a great example where multiple functions need to come together in order to work as system of systems. So this business model thinking is something that is new, and yet operational excellence has not necessarily defined it or has not been able to adapt to it yet. The other thing, of course, is mass scale innovation. Again, operational excellence, some of the constraints, some of the artifacts, some of the rituals in operational excellence prevent companies from adopting the mass scale innovation. And then the last thing, of course, is disruptive competition from companies thousands of miles away are coming in. And that's why just simply process improvements may not be enough for the operational excellence teams to stay relevant as we speak. And yet we know that businesses need operational excellence now more than ever. It is because there is an increase in complexity and scale. There are lots of changes taking place in the market. The speed at which it's changing is mind-boggling. There is acceleration in the way companies are acquiring competitive advantage. In fact, nowadays, lots of companies are going after real niche customer requirements. So it's no longer a one glove fit all approach. Many companies need to get down to being very customized, very bespoke, very niche product offering or a service offering. Then we obviously talk about data-driven business management. In the past, data was primarily inside the organization, ERP-based or CRM-based, but now because of social media, because of the external interactions, and the data could be structured or unstructured, there is a humongous amount of data that's available. To be able to mine those data elements, to be able to put them in a cohesive and an understandable way is very important for the management of any organization as we speak. Then we obviously talk about success through experimentation. This is again something that needs to be guided, that needs to be done in a structured manner, that needs to be done in a contained manner so that it does not go wild. At the same time, we don't kill the creativity, the innovation that's required. Then obviously, for the first time in the history, we talk about 4 generations in the workforce: baby boomers, Gen X's, millennials, Gen Z, and within the next 5 to 10 years, we're also going to see people from the Gen Alpha start knocking at the doors of the business world. And then there are items around sustainability and social impact angle. And why do we say the business needs operational excellence now more than ever? Because operational excellence in most of the businesses tends to be across functions, tend to be horizontal in the vertical functional silos. They tend to work across management layers, right from the top senior level, C-level people, all the way down to the mid-level managers and individuals. They have the best seat in the organization to understand the entire organization end to end on a single canvas, compared to any of the other functions who only get to see part of the canvas. So that's why we believe operational excellence is required even in the future. So let's understand operational excellence. Embedded 20th century thinking. Most of the operational excellence techniques that we use today were invented in 20th century. In fact, many of them were invented pre-World War. Schwartz's statistical process control that's used in Six Sigma was in the 30s and the 40s. Ford's 8D model again came around the same period of time. Toyota's model started evolving from the 50s and 60s. That's also the period where Deming came up with his methodology that kind of helped the businesses in Japan. And then we had the 80s, we had the 70s and 80s where people started talking about business process improvements. In the 80s saw the rise of Six Sigma, first by Motorola, then with General Electric, and then many of the other companies started adopting Six Sigma. Many of the other companies started adopting Lean as their preferred method of improving their company's operations. But what we find is many of them are centered around improving the processes. And that's where some of the shortcomings lay. And again, I'm not saying that these methodologies are not important, but what I'm saying is that the world has moved to an experience economy, and that's why only looking at the process is not going to help. And again, Lean, TOC, Six Sigma, they try to use a broader framework of not just processes, but also leadership, also people. But many of the organizations have ended up just adopting the process side of these methodologies. The other aspect, which is extremely important, is in the 20th century, majority of the companies would have asset-based thinking. In fact, it's so deeply rooted in the philosophy of businesses that even the accounting standards look at assets as something that gives competitive advantage. But we know that, especially in the last 20 years, we've seen rise of companies that are extremely people dependent, extremely IP rich dependent, extremely technology dependent. And these are the places where it's the people who are giving competitive advantage. And that's where some of the confusion that exists in the business world is, on one side, the accounting principles do not allow companies to look at people as assets, and therefore they're viewed as costs. There are other companies that understand that people should be viewed as assets and should be invested into and not looked as costs, because people, when you unlock their abilities, their capabilities, they are able to give you huge growth, huge opportunities to improve, etc. Another aspect which is extremely important is fear of failure. Even in my early corporate career days, failure was not really an option, especially if you're trying to rise up in the corporate ladder. Failure was looked upon as a setback to your career. Now people ask you to embrace failure. They ask you that if you want to experiment, if you want to innovate, you need to be able to take failure in your stride. And that's where there's a fundamental shift in the way you look at failures from the past. And then culture was not recognized an integral part of the management system. So let's look at what's to change. What we see is we need to really challenge beliefs, the beliefs on which the management systems, on which the leadership thinking, on which the way employees work in an organization. We should challenge the beliefs. First is process-centric thinking. It's no longer enough to just improve processes. You need to think about how people interact with your systems. You need to look at the emotions, the aspirations aspect of people. You should be able to look at what training, what skills people bring in that could be exploited, that could be leveraged further in order to create further capabilities. Second part is individual performances. Again, we look at capability-based thinking where an individual plays a certain part, but individual performance is not given more importance than team performance. We are looking at the end of the day for a capability in a company. We're not looking at an individual specifically, and that's where this individual performance thinking it can be constrained. The third is cost-centered mindset. Operational excellence in many companies I've seen are looked upon as cost. So whenever a company goes through a downturn, it usually the operational excellence projects get shelved compared to some companies where operational excellence is looked upon as an enabling function. And that's where they have been able to jump to much higher level of performance. The fourth one is digital avoidance. As I said, that's generative AI, for example, the way it's changing the way the business world operates. And yet, I haven't seen good enough examples of operational excellence teams using ChatGPT in their day-to-day work. So digital avoidance is still very much plaguing the performance of operational excellence. Incremental business philosophy. The way the world is changing in the last 15 years, majority of the changes that have taken place are not necessarily incremental changes. They have been disruptive. They have been radical changes. And that's where companies need to think. I'm not saying every company needs to radically disrupt themselves every couple of years. Maybe it's required. But what I'm saying is at least companies should be able to visualize, exercise, socialize with the ideas of those radical or transformative changes rather than just incremental business changes. And then the asset management, again, in the previous page, as I mentioned, it's people centricity that we need to drive, not necessarily just the assets, not the building, the real estate and all that stuff. It's the people aspect that we need to look at in the new age operational excellence. And then last one obviously is employee as workers. We need to think of employees as opportunities, as potential that could be unlocked, that could be unleashed in order to gain superlative experiences, superlative excellences in the operations as it exists today. So what to change to? Right? So future of operational excellence, the way we see it is it's going to be experience centric. There has to be some digital fluency. People should be aware of what's happening in the digital world, how AI is changing. Very simple. A person in the operational excellence team should be able to use things like ChatGPT, should be able to use items like cloud computing or large-scale data analysis in order to come up with recommendations by which companies can excel in their operations. Third is innovation and experimentation. Innovation is not incremental changes. Innovation is thinking of radically doing something different. And experimentation would be required in order to test your ideas. And you need to think of how do you handle experimentation. You can't have 1 or 2 or 3 experiments in a month. You will need probably dozens of experiments, if not hundreds, that needs to be conducted by organizations. We then need to talk about data leadership. As I mentioned in the past pages, data is going to play a vital role, especially the data which is from the outside of your organization, from the outside of your business. And the last one is it will be collaboration and community-based ecosystems. When it comes to jobs, the jobs that used to exist in the past are likely to change quite radically in the future. In fact, whether it's Gartner or Dell, they've all said that a large number of jobs that have existed in the past are going to radically change over the next 5 to 7 years. And that's where operational excellence needs to not just only talk about today, but should be able to speak about the future working of businesses, the future way of conducting business as well. So it's time to reinvent operational excellence, right? So how do you do it? First, as I said, process thinking, which is your SIPOC, RASI, cycle time efficiency, needs to give away to capabilities thinking. We need to think about decision-making structures. We need to talk about leadership and team dynamics. We need to talk about management systems. Obviously, processes and operating procedures will still continue to exist. Communication will be there, but relationship and influence. This is something that was largely untouched during the process thinking, but it's going to be extremely important in the capabilities thinking. I mean, majority of the transformations, as you know, fail. 80% of the digital transformation, as per Forbes back in 2019, the study they had conducted, fail. One of the largest reasons why they fail is organizational resistance and organizational inertia. And this is what the relationship and influence is all about. We obviously are going to talk about data management, but now we'll also have opportunities where we can really unlock potential that people have. And by the way, this potential that people have may not be readily accessible. You may need to train them, you need to professionally develop them in order to unlock the capabilities, unlock their talent that they can bring to the table. And then obviously finance and tools and technology that will be enveloped together with the rest of the items. So where to start and how? This page is based on research that we conducted over the last several years. We have ended up speaking with more than 200 practitioners. We did research on change management, on culture, on performance. And what we found is excellence is an outcome. It's the result of underlying structures, practices, leadership, talent, and experience. These excellences are often controlled by constraints, and these constraints, when you configure it the right way, they can create humongous opportunities. So based on this, we have figured out what the 7 most important factors that actually help companies get excellence. We captured them into our methodology. And the other thing that we found is that these 7 factors also work in tandem as system of systems. And that's where we look at the influences of each of the factors amongst others. So on the basis of that, we have come up with this model, and I'm just going to walk you through the 7 factors which we believe are required to reinvent operational excellence. First one is strategic future. Now, at a company level, at a business level, you probably have your leadership teams that have talked about strategic future. But how does operational excellence come into play? What you need to figure out, and this, you as operational excellence leader needs to work with your C-level, trying to figure out what strategic capabilities do they need to build for the next 3 to 5 years. That's the starting point. On the basis of the strategic capabilities, there are 2 parts that you as an OpEx leader need to play. One is, are there pieces or are there specific elements that you need to work with the senior leadership in order to help the company develop those strategic capabilities? That's one. The second thing is, in order for the company to look at the future and to grow the company or to develop the company further, what sort of operational excellence capabilities would you need to define or would you need to develop in your teams? So 2-pronged. One is the strategic capabilities your businesses are developing. How does the operational excellence teams help in developing those strategic capabilities? Second part is, what skills, what experiences, what expertise do you need to develop within your own teams, operational excellence teams, in order to support those endeavors, right? So strategic future is the first one that we define as the starting point. Another aspect that we need to talk about is we talked about innovation, experimentation, and critical thinking and all of that stuff in the past few pages. To bring in innovation or to bring in some of these thinking, you need to change the way you do things. And that means in terms of governance, in terms of tools and templates, etc. The next few pages, we're going to talk about that, right? So the first factor we see is strategic future. Operational excellence teams, what strategic future, what strategic capabilities do you need to help the company with, and do you need to develop yourselves? The second one is innovation and critical thinking, right? So again, the company would need to innovate. How can your teams help in innovation? How can your teams create a structure that captures innovation well? The second part is critical thinking. And as I said, Operational excellence teams tend to have an end-to-end vision of what's going on in the company. And that's where your experienced people need to wear their critical thinking hat and to figure out what areas must be changed, whether it's people, leadership, processes, technology, decision-making, key performance indicators, governance, etc. So the critical thinking is one of the most critical elements where we believe operational excellence teams need to reinvent themselves radically, dramatically to stay relevant. Okay, so this is the second factor, innovation and critical thinking. Operational excellence teams, after they figured out the strategic future, they now need to take it to a level deeper and start thinking about what innovation does the company need and how can the operational excellence teams support it. What innovation do the operational excellence teams need to drive? And more importantly, what sort of critical thinking do the operational excellence teams need to bring to the table? Now, on the first and the second factor, that would drive the direction, the velocity, and the tone of what needs to change over the next few years and how that's going to shape up. At the same time, you need the foundation of the business to be strong. And this is where the third factor, organization structure and leadership, comes in. Again, this is something where we talk about what sort of leadership styles and skills do the operational teams need in order to develop support the development of the future capabilities. How enabled are the operational excellence teams to drive changes in the organization? How important the role of operational excellence is going to be, but more importantly, what sort of decision making would need to be changed? What sort of organization structure that would enable the company to proceed forward, to march forward, compared to what will be the impeding force? So this is again where the businesses and especially the OpEx teams can play a pivotal role in order to identify the gaps in the existing organization structure or the impediments in the current organization structure, the bottlenecks, and how operational excellence teams working with the senior leadership team can impact the organizational structure and leadership. The fourth one is management system, and this is again where we talk about tools and technology, we talk about key performance indicators, governance, we talk about policies and procedures, we talk about the tactical decision making, etc. And this is where, as we look into the future and we look at the rapidly changing business world, what are the management system changes that need to be brought about, but more importantly, how an operational excellence team is going to play a role either changing, transforming the management system and or looking at the new management system needs to be implemented in terms of change, resistance, and influence. So that's your management system, right? So we talked about the third factor, which was organization structure and leadership, and the fourth is management system. Together, they'll form the foundation. Once that is done, we then look at people and professional development. This is again, operational excellence teams can dive in, get an understanding in the organization of what skill set shortages, gaps exist, and how they need to be filled in. Now, obviously, I can absolutely understand a lot of the operational excellence teams, they themselves may not have the adequate experience and the expertise to be able to do this, but this is again an opportunity where the operational excellence teams must take a lead, because chances are that you are the first ones who actually get to know where there is a constraint, where there is a challenge, and look at the challenge as an opportunity. So this is the people and professional developments that we need to think. Two angles. First, at the organization level, how the OpEx teams can play a role. And second thing is within your own teams, what sort of power skills do you need to develop? What sort of professional developments that you need to do in your teams? Sixth is employee experience. As I said, for the first time in the history, we have 4 different generations working in a business. We have some members of baby boomers still working. We have the Gen X people who are there. We have the millennials, and then we have the Gen Z who are part of the workforce. And employee experience has become extremely important, especially for the millennials and Gen Z. Keep in mind that in the past, quite often this was referred to as employee engagement. It is now not enough to just be able to give employee engagement. You need to create that superior employee experience. And this, again, is multi-layered. So on one side, we're talking about experience of employees in general, and this could be part of the business, and we need to see how operational excellence can play a role. But it can also mean how do we develop, how do we create that experience within the operational excellence team? How do we attract talent from outside? How do we retain talent? So all of that experience bit is going to become extremely important in the near future. So that's where the sixth factor that comes in, which is the employee experience. And then we talk about rewards and recognition. This is a factor that promotes or that dissuades organization going in a certain direction. So rewards and recognition, when used widely and wisely, can really motivate people. At the same time, this could also be used to pursue employees who are not showing the right kind of behaviors. This is again one factor that does not get used often or used as much as it can be in many organizations. And this is again an opportunity where if you want to really unlock people's potential, you should be able to use the rewards and recognition lever very effectively. So these 7 factors, when you combine them, when you converge these things into a system of systems thinking and reinvented OpEx, that's where this model comes in, which we call PROMISE. PROMISE is an acronym for those 7 factors: people and professional development, rewards, recognition, incentives, organization hierarchy and leadership styles, management system, innovation and critical thinking, strategic future, and employee experience. So the way it works is, at the bottom, we look at a company, we take the PROMISE lens, we evaluate the company on various factors that we had mentioned, the various elements, and then we see which are the pieces that needs to be worked upon. We put the new configurations in place, and then we start driving adoption. Adoption over a period of time starts driving the right kind of behavior, which then in turn becomes strategic capabilities, and which end up creating the future force multiplier operating model. So why PROMISE? The advantage of PROMISE is it's flexible, it's simple, it's comprehensive, but more importantly, it's employee-centric and force multipliers. And because it's on a page, it allows leadership team to be aligned very quickly. PROMISE is a way that we want to use in order to bring experience and operational excellence together to redefine the way operational excellence gets done in organizations. So that was it, what I wanted to share in this mini masterclass. If you want to explore further, you can contact us. These are our phone numbers and email ID, or you can book a 30-minute discussion with us with the calendar. Actually, this 30-minute discussion is going to be with me. So that's what you can do. Just to give you an idea of different services that we offer related to this, we do trainings, workshops. We also do design, skills development, mentoring, and coaching. With that, I bring this mini masterclass to an end. This is masterclass that was based on our model PROMISE, which is a high-performance 10x growth thinking model. And we believe that this particular model can really be explored, exploited, and leveraged to really create a new, fresh experience, operational excellence in the age of generative AI. And last but not least, if you found value with this masterclass, then do refer this masterclass to your friends or colleagues. Do subscribe to our channel, like it, and spread the news around. We believe that we're looking at a great, bright future. And here is our promise to create a high-performance culture. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Anirban Sen signing off. Thank you so much for watching this mini masterclass.